Today we're going to be adding a shadow under the edge of our checkerboard sphere project. And for this, you're going to need a stencil that will make it easy for you to get your shadow exactly right on your sphere. So you'll need to try a few different sizes of stencils to see what fits. One good way to start is to measure your circle. And you start here on this very first line and measure across. Mine is a little bigger than 3.5 inches. So I know to look for a stencil that is at least 3.5 inches, and this one is 3.5 inches. And if I put it on here, I can see that it's a little bit smaller than my circle. So this one is a little too small. Now here is one that is 3 13/16. And if I put it on here, I can see it's a little too big. Just slightly a little too big. So that one wouldn't be the right choice for me. And here is one that's 3 5/8. If I line it up on here, it looks just about perfect. Just right, really close. So this is the one I'm going to use. Next, I'm going to get my charcoal, and I'm going to have to decide where is my light source in this picture. Is my light source coming in this way, or is my light source going this way, and my shadow should be on that side? So the first thing that you need to decide is which way is your light source going. You can see I already have a shadow on that side, so I should keep my light source consistent within this picture and have my light source coming in this way and my shadow going this way, because you can't have two different light sources in one picture. So my light source is over here, my shadow is going to be over here. So I'm going to put my stencil right on top of my circle, and I'm going to put my shadow over here on this side. I'm going to use my charcoal on the flat side, and I'm just going to shade it in just like that, just really lightly. You don't need a lot. Don't press hard. This is a really subtle kind of a shadow over here. So I'm just going to gently blend it in. It shouldn't be super black. Shadows are more of like a gray. Okay, so now I've got a shadow that's on that side of my sphere, so that's looking pretty nice. And next, I need a shadow on this side of the actual sphere itself. So the light source is going to be over here. This is going to be the bright side. Around here, I need a nice little bit of a light shadow. So for that, I'm going to use this type of a stencil so I can keep my shadow inside the sphere. And it's going to be sort of shaped like a crescent. It's going to wrap around like this. So think of a crescent moon. You're going to just have a little bit of light shadow right here on this side. Just like that. Don't use a lot. Don't press really hard. Really subtle shadow here. And then blend it in with your finger. You could always add a little bit more if you feel like you really need it. And it's okay if you get some charcoal on your stencil. That's totally fine. If you feel like you have a little too much shadowing, you can remove some of it with your eraser, because you want this side to be the light side and this side to be the dark side over here. So you can pick this up and remove it and see how your shadow turned out. Actually, my shadow is a little too far away from the edge. See how I've got this like a gap right there in between? So I didn't get my shadow close enough to the edge, so I need to move my stencil over and fill that in a little bit more. Really lightly. Subtlety is the key here. And I'm holding my stencil still. And I'm going to remove that. That should be a little bit better. That's a little closer. Looks like I need to fill in this side a little bit more. Sometimes your stencil doesn't fit 100% all the way to the edge, so you have to maybe shift it slightly. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. I've got my shadow, which is my cast shadow, that's over here underneath the sphere, and then I've got my shadow that wraps around the sphere on the inside. Anytime you have any shadow in a spot that you don't want it, you can erase it. And if I turn it this way, it also looks good this way. It looks like my light is coming from above, and I've got the shadow underneath, and then the cast shadow from where this is. I still see a little tiny bit of a gap right here in between my sphere and my cast shadow. So I'm going to try to fill that in a little bit more. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think that looks really realistic, and it really looks a lot more like a big round sphere now. It's always good to practice this technique before you actually do it on this paper that you spent so much time on. So please take a practice piece of paper. It's totally fine and legitimate to do this with practice paper first. Grab your stencil. You can shade around just like a little crescent on the one side. Really lightly. Please don't press really hard. And erase any spots that you don't think look nice and smooth, like a realistic looking shadow. And take that off. And that does look like a pretty nice sphere. You can practice the cast shadow underneath it by covering this up and doing a little shadow underneath. And you can always erase anywhere where you don't think the shadow should be. And fill in any gaps. Touch up with your eraser until you're really happy with the way it looks. And when you feel confident with this technique on your practice page, then you can move on and actually do this on the one that you've spent so much time on your checkerboard sphere project. Because you want to make sure that you get this right, so practice it first and make sure you're happy with the way it looks before you apply it on here. All right, practice away, good luck. Remember, don't touch your face or don't touch anything with your hands after you have your after you've been using this for a while. Keep a paper towel handy so that you can wipe off your fingers so that you don't get smudges all over where you don't want them. All right, be careful. Keep in mind the stencil is really here as a tool for you, and it's important to hold it still while you're using it. So when you practice with this, you want to hold this stencil in place while you're doing your blending. That's the whole purpose of it, is to protect the paper around it from getting all smudged up. So I'm holding the stencil really still. I remove it. I've got a shadow that I like. Then I can do the cast shadow underneath it by putting this right on top of it and doing the shadow underneath. Like this. But see, I'm holding the stencil really still the whole time. And then you can tap it off to get any little dust off, and you can erase and clean up your edges any way that you think you might need to, so it looks really nice.